and they're from New England Anomalies
Research. Yes.
I did that without a stammer.
You did that well.
And tonight we're just going to ask a few questions. They've been kind enough to come along and answer a few questions for us, because back in Australia we are unaware of the work that they do and thought we'd learn a little bit about it tonight. So I'll ask a few questions. I mean, the obvious question to all three of you is...
How did we meet Sandra?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that one.
Oh.
We've got to start a little bit back at the beginning first.
First question would be how obvious question would be how you both, well, first of all, the early days, how you two got into hunting ghosts and demonology, specifically demonology, how you went into that field.
Well, we grew up in a house where there was some paranormal activity, and it increased as the years progressed. We became very interested in exploring the supernatural. Of course, there wasn't much of an outlet for young guys to do that back then. There was no internet. There were really no ghost groups out there, so we formed our own. Just did it basically freehand, examining our own home and our own hauntings. And as the years progressed, we also became more and more interested in inhuman spirit phenomena, not just ghosts per se, but demonic, and specifically with me it was demonic and angelic I became increasingly interested in.
So what made you go into or even think about the non-human demonic side of it?
Partially it was because of our religious upbringing. You know, we were brought up in a Christian household. Carl became more interested in the demonic per se. I was very interested in angelic and demonic, because these were things that had never walked the earth in human form as we know it. It's a separate entity from, say, what would be considered human spirit. And that really fascinated us because there wasn't a lot of material about it at the time, at least none that we could find. So we wanted to explore it. That's basically what started us, yes.
So you were more into the demonology at the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Well, the difference being these malevolent spirit forms that seem somehow stronger and even more aware, more calculating, more intelligent than what would be assumed to be a typical ghost type, which is thought to be the remnant of a human being. These seem to have an agenda of their own, these demonic forms. And we first encountered demonic presence when we were called into our first case, very first organized paranormal investigation that Keith and I, in someone's home, Keith and I engaged in, turned out to be a full-blown demonic case. So that increased my interest in this realm of the demonic.
So it was after you encountered it that you went more into that?
Precisely,
realm.
yes.
So it wasn't before? Because
I was speculating what kind of force could do this. Do they exist apart from what we consider the spirit realm? Are they their own types of energy and entity? And they seem to be. The demonic form, the demonic spirit is stronger than the typical ghost, than the human-generated spirit. They seem to be able to generate more psychokinetic force. They can move larger objects around. They seem more destructive, more malevolent, more intent on causing strife and discord in a family unit particularly. They don't always seem to stick around as long as the other type of spirit, the ghost. A ghost can have a presence generated for decades. The demonic force seems to enter, do its mischief, and then depart after a time. Perhaps it runs out of energy. Perhaps there are certain restrictions it has to abide by, but it doesn't seem to linger as long.
So would that be similar to a poltergeist?
Poltergeist is another form of
Or is that
inhuman
just a
entity. Yeah. In some senses it could be related to demonics, but the difference with a poltergeist is it seems to be generated by the human occupants, the residents in a house. The more we study them, the more other people have examined these forces. They seem to be dependent upon the human occupants in the house and feed off of them, perhaps even be produced by them. It doesn't seem to have as much of a mind of its own. It seems more mischievous, if anything, and they don't last long. They may recur, they may even follow people, but they don't seem to last as long as a demonic, or especially the human type of spirit.
So Sandra, how did you get involved in the demonology side? Was that your views when you came into it?
Did we have anything to do with it?
What did you?
You didn't.
What did you learn
Actually,
it from?
I met and married my husband, and he was a paranormal investigator with a demonology focus, and I started investigating with him, and I fell right into it, and I was fascinated, and it's been my passion ever since.
So is demonology specifically a passion of yours as well? Or?
Inhuman spirits,
Inhuman
inhuman hauntings, yes.
So what's your definition of, I mean, if you go into a place that you've been called into, how would you define an inhuman entity from a human spirit?
There are definite signs that, well, when I say definite, they indicate a demonic presence, but they do have definite categories of phenomena. If children are in the house, they will report seeing some ominous-looking specter, and often these apparitions are seen missing a body part. Frequently the eyes, the children will report seeing this, like dark man, this evil man who's coming to their bedrooms or following them. And often they report that they don't have eyes, and then after a time the adults may see these apparitions. Foul odors, unpleasant scents that seem to invade the house and then recede just as suddenly. That might be indicative of demonic presence. Slashes on people's bodies, and they wake up with marks on their skins, or sometimes not even when they're sleeping. Bruising, there's assaults, something that might seem like a human soul initially, but then takes on a darker aspect, evinces more malevolent behavior, and seems to just cause disruption within the family unit. People start to quarrel among themselves in ways they didn't before. Tension escalates. Those may be indications of demonic presence and will proceed as such if all those signs, or even some of those signs, are present.
So are your views the same on what demons are?
Well, in their manifestations, but not in all ways on their origins. I seem to think they have more of a human influence to them, that human beings influence and in many cases produce these demonics. I theorize that perhaps a human soul or a human remnant of a human personality could, under certain circumstances and conditions, degenerate into what we classify as a demonic entity.